Well, hello, Kitty. Look who's here. All our fans are out there. Despite my reservations, I went ahead and picked up the Rough Ryder Reserve 004 barback, which is kind of an odd looking knife. I know what it's supposed to be doing. It is a bartender type of tool. And I think that's the main reason I ended up picking it up because, well, I got a lot of bar tools. And I'll show you some of those in the slideshow. And that's mainly why, despite being very much on the fence with this knife, I went ahead and picked it up. Now, before I go on, let's take a look at the cap lifter or bottle opener. Okay, this isn't my first time using a cap lifter of this sort, but it will be the first time I'm actually opening anything with this particular cap lifter. So I might have a few problems with it. First of all, when opening something with it, you're not going to be doing it like this, because if you were, you have the potential of a blade closing. I think it's ever so slight, especially considering you could actually choke up on it right there, but then you have the potential of your finger slipping into the blade. Both bad options. Now, I've done this before with my slash and turn, which is a little bit bigger, but the way you actually use this type of can opener is you actually use it with the knife closed, and you hook it in and you lift up, and it works just fine. So those who are saying that it's not safe or anything because of the way it is designed, they're just not using it correctly. This is easily a very safe can opener. You're not having to, calling it a can opener, cap lifter, and this is a one-shot deal, so just get used to the fact that I was calling it a can opener when it's a cap lifter or bottle opener. But as you can see, it works just fine. You're doing it with the blades closed and you're popping up. So let's go look at the knife now. Okay, now that we have the cap lifter out of the way, let's talk about the rest of the knife. First of all, it's not a really big knife. It is 3 5/8 inches long, which basically means it is about the same length as your standard canoe. Not at all a long knife. And that is probably one of the problems I have with the knife. I think it should have been an overall length of probably 4 inches. That would have been a better length for it. And as you notice, it is much thicker than your standard canoe. And that's because if you can see those back springs, those are some really thick back springs going on. Got some nice brass liners in between everything. Like the other Rough Ryder Reserve knives, I mean, it is built very solid, and maybe perhaps even overbuilt. You've got some wonderful polished, but not mirror polished bolsters going on there. You do have a nickel polished or a nickel silver shield that is highly polished, and you've got your brass pins, I believe. And yeah, the back springs are more of a finger magnet or a fingerprint magnet than anything else on there, as well as the nickel silver shield. Now, a couple people have complained that the shield appears to be crooked, and I don't really think that's the case. I think what they've done is they have lined the shield up with the bottom of the knife or the spine of the knife, and if you see there, in that case, it is nice and straight. But I guess what a lot of people are looking at is the distance from here to here with the front bolster, because if you notice, the handle is more or less a sleeve board design, sort of like what you see on a Seahorse Whittler. And I guess they were expecting that shield to line up with the bolsters, to hit the center of the bolster, because it is kind of like an arrowhead. But that is not the option they chose. They just went ahead and lined it up with the bottom of the knife. And that's That's up to you if you think that's a problem or not. That is the design they went with. I'm all right with that. The other thing that a lot of people have complained about is, if you notice, the tangs here are very much proud. They're sticking up above the bolsters on both ends. And I kind of agree with the people who have said they should have just made the handle a little bit wider, so that the tang tips here would be hidden by the bolsters, and that might have been a good idea. I do realize that if they had done that, they would probably have to raise this up a little bit like so, and probably do the same thing with the back blade, so that you would still be able to use the cap lifter, and you would be able to open the knife, the secondary blade as well. But I think that would have been a better option, because one of my complaints with the knife is the handle is a little bit thin. I wish it was a little bit taller. But then it would be even more of a pocketful because of the main blade here. So again, it's a choice that they went with. They went with a thinner handle so that they could make the overall profile of the knife lower. I'm assuming that's what they did. And in general, I do like the lines on the knife. It's a really good design. I like the way it is laid out and everything, more or less. I mean, as long as you're doing a two-bladed knife. People have complained that they think that this is all going to be snagging in the pockets with this here and the sharp point here and the sharp point there. Well, I've been throwing it in pockets, both left and right front pockets, and pulling it out over and over, and I am not really experiencing any pocket snags or anything like that. Maybe other people are, but I don't see it as something that's going to be snagging in the pocket a lot. I have plenty of knives with tangs that are proud like that, and I rarely experience pocket snags. I think that's something that people think is going to happen, but doesn't really happen nearly as often as they believe they do. In any case, that's, again, my opinion. So if you do experience a lot of pocket snags, then okay, I get it. I can understand why you're not happy with that. But with that said, let's talk a little bit about holding this blade when it is open. Okay, so there we have it. Really a funkier looking knife once that blade is open, because of your cutout here and then your finger choil going on there. I do like the integrated finger choil, and as long as you're comfortable using it, I think you'll be okay. There is quite a bit of space there for it, for your finger, depending on the size of your hand. But if you start grabbing it like that, then yeah, your hand is right up against it. But seriously, who's really going to be holding the knife like that? You might end up holding it like that, cutting towards you or something, and that could be problematic, because you can see just how close my thumb is into there. So, and this does not feel comfortable right there either. So those are all problems, and because that is not the most comfortable spot, it might cause your fingers to slip a little bit. So that could be a problem. I think one of the things they could have done also, I don't know if you can see it there, let me try and get it down. Notice how thin the blade gets there. It is very, very thin coming up onto the cutting edge there, and you definitely feel it. And I worry that when removing my finger, if I remove it incorrectly, I could actually nick myself right on the corner there. So what I might end up doing is blunting that little spot right there. But if you do that, then you're going to even have even less of a cutting edge, because the cutting edge on there, almost cut myself right there, is just over 1 3/4 inches. So to blunt a little of it might bring it down to just under 1 3/4 inches. So you don't have a lot of cutting edge on there. But if you're just grabbing it like so, you can see your finger's pretty clear from there, but you are going to have to be careful with that finger choil. And that's what I would say, especially if you got a larger hand than me, because then your hand is even going to be closer to the finger choil, and you will feel exactly what I'm talking about when I talk about how thin the blade gets up to the front there. The edges have not been smooth or anything, so you definitely got a 90-degree angle going on there. But that's what I would say about that. But overall, I think it's an adequate finger choil for those who want to use it like that. You could always back up a little bit, but then it doesn't feel nearly as comfortable grabbing the knife further back. It really is designed for your index finger to be in that finger choil when you're doing some cutting, and that is for some serious hard cutting into stuff. So, and I'm not sure if you really need that hard of a cut with what is basically a bartender's tool. Let's move on to the secondary blade. Now, the secondary blade was my main concern before picking up this knife, because of all the bumps here going on with this knife in the large Wharncliffe blade that is the primary blade. How comfortable is it going to be to use the secondary blade? And I tell you what, it really is not comfortable to hold. I know other people have said, "No, it's fine, you can work it out." But I tell you what, if I were to be using this for any length of time, it would definitely, there's just so many hot spots on the Wharncliffe blade that it just makes it uncomfortable. The first one being, at least with my hand, is if you notice when I'm closing it up, there's where it is hitting, right in the into the middle of my ring finger. That is the natural place I would be gripping this knife. You can see I'm not trying to fake it or anything. And if I press down hard, you will see where the blade is making contact. And if I were to be cutting and hit something hard and it were to wiggle a bit, maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't, but it's relatively sharp. And would it snag or break the skin? I don't know, but it definitely would hurt a bit. And if you notice, you've got a nice wedge going on with this front blade here and the nice D2 tool steel. Well, that even thins the blade out even more, and that is cutting in to my front fingers. So you have a very thin piece of metal that is basically supporting your front two fingers when you're gripping the knife. And we're talking about hot spots all down your hand when you're grabbing that knife and cutting. Now, if you're just cutting for a little bit, it's not going to be a big deal. But if you were to be using this knife continuously all day long, you're either going to build a callus up across here, or you're just going to say, "No, I'm tired of it. I don't want to use this knife anymore because it hurts too much." So that is an issue with the secondary blade. And I think that could have been solved a little bit by having the handle a little wider and a little bit longer, so that you would have this secondary, for instance, if this were a half an inch longer, you would probably have your hand coming up over here, and it wouldn't be nearly as problematic. Wouldn't be nearly as many places where your hand would be hurting. And it's really one of those things where that's another thing that bothers me. And then I'll talk about the other thing up here. You got the one nail nick here in the front, and they put the other nail nick on the back, and I don't know why. It seems to me both nail nicks should have been on the front, because I'm not going to turn the knife around to open it. Fortunately, you can just pinch it and pull it open, but it would be nicer if the nail nick were up in the front side over here instead of on the back side. Just again, that is just a my own personal thought on it. In any case, what I was going to point out before was the swedge here. While it looks really nice, and I'm sure it helps with the penetration up front here on the On the Wharncliffe blade, it actually increases the amount of hot spots when you're using the spear blade. So it looks nice, but it's almost to the point of I wish they had not put the swedge on that blade, because then I would have a little more metal stock going down in here. Either that or make the swedge a little shorter, maybe bringing it only up to here or something, and having the blade spine a little thicker up here, because that would have made it a little more comfortable to use the spear blade. And the thing with the bottle opener and this blade, it really doesn't interfere with the bottle opener at all, so that's not a problem. But the other thought that I had on this is I wish, because this is the bar back, so it is supposed to be a bartender's type of tool, I wish it would have had a corkscrew. Bartender tool, corkscrew, kind of goes there. And if they would have made this a little bit longer, then maybe they would have been able to fit a bartender's tool on it. So my overall impression of the knife is it's pretty cool. I'm glad I have it in for my collection of bar knives, but in several ways it definitely misses the mark on a few things, and the big one is the really I think they should have just left the secondary blade off and put in a corkscrew, and that would have made it a more proper bartender's tool. But build wise, it's fantastic. You've got your micarta, you can see it there, the linen micarta handles, which look really good, and it seems like that's the direction Rough Ryder Reserve knives are going to go. They're going to go in micarta. I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'm hoping to see it in other material, but that's the direction they have gone with this. And in some ways, micarta kind of makes sense with a bartender's knife, because well, you're going to have to clean it often and everything. So, and it'll handle that pretty well. The other thing I'm thinking of with it is I know people are talking about not the world's greatest pocket carry, but again, I would see this knife just sitting at the bar, not being in a pocket anyway. So that's my real thought on it. At the end of the day, though, what I wish they would have done, and I know they're not going to do that, is I wish they would have offered this in just the regular Rough Ryder line, and wait for people to make comments about what they like and dislike about it, and then pop something like this in the Rough Ryder Reserve line, because testing this out at $15 or $20 is one thing, but to spend $50 on it and then find those kind of issues with it is a little bit upsetting. I guess I'll put it that way. I wish I would have not paid $50 for this knife, simply because it's not the most comfortable knife, but it is still a pretty cool looking knife. That's just that's my thoughts. I know a lot of other people are saying giving it much higher praise, but I'm trying to be as honest as possible here. I do like it, but do I like it for $50? I guess that's the real question, and I'm really not sold on it at this point. I'll use it a little more. I'll try it around, open a few other bottles with it, and try cutting up some fruit and stuff with it and see how it goes. But so far, the little bit of work that I have done with it has made me say, no, this is not the first knife I'm going to grab and use. I've got too many other bartender knives that work better than this one does. I guess that's the bottom line. But still, pretty cool looking knife. I'll give them that. I give them props on attempting something new and giving us the bar back. Well, now, if that wasn't the cat's meow, I don't know what else I can do. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please leave a comment. Even if you didn't like it, leave a comment. Give me that thumbs up. Give me that thumbs down. Looking forward to it. And if you really enjoyed the show and want to know what's coming up next, go ahead and subscribe and ring that notification bell. Kitty says hi. Talk to you again soon.